Hi guys, I'm Summer,
And I'm Carolina.
and we're sleep consultants.
For 21 years combined and really great friends for like 2 months.
We have our own kids. I have 2 kids over 18.
And I have 2 kids under 18.
We have worked with over 1,000 families combined. That's a lot of kids.
That's so many kids. And we also run our own sleep consulting practices and we mentor other sleep consultants.
That's a lot of things that we do.
Yeah, but you know what? Our goal really is to bring peace and less stress into your homes.
And that's why we decided to do a podcast together. Call it For the Love of Sleep.
I just love that. So if you guys want some sleep tips, laugh, and know how we get through all these things, come on down and listen to our podcast. And then, we're recording this, so I should begin from the beginning. We're talking about laser treatments.
Yes.
And we'll start at the beginning. But like just a recap of what I was just saying is that I wasn't informed that you can shave right before you go to your laser treatment.
Right.
So I didn't do that, and it's not like I was like walking like a hairy beast or anything. I just I had enough hair, enough that like when you get waxed,
It's painful.
like, so what happened was I was getting like the full leg done and then just a bikini line, and then the lady goes to me, she's like, even if I put numbing cream, this is still going to hurt. And I'm like, well, why did I know about this before? And I'm like, whatever, I'm already here. Let's do this. So when she gets up to the upper thigh, like how there's like certain like really sensitive areas.
Yes.
Oh my God. I literally I turned beet red like my blazer. And then at a certain point, like what I was saying before is it reminded me of like giving birth, because when I was getting my epidural, you would have the contraction and then the nurses, and they're trying to calm you down and talk to you. I went like this to her. And then I started taking like a deep breath, and I'm like deep breaths. And then she's like, "Are you ready?" And then she puts a laser on, she does it, and I went like this. and then a second time. So every time she would do it, and I'm like, this was just like when I was giving birth. You should really pre-warn people, but I'm telling you, it was the best. Afterwards, I was good. I mean, everything after like for a couple of hours, everything smelled like was burning.
Yeah.
Like burning hair. And then I went into the office and my husband is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Do you smell that?" he's like,
burning from the inside.
he's like, "No, what do you mean?" I'm like, "You don't smell like that burning stuff?" He's like, "No, babe, I don't smell anything." I'm like, it's ingrained in me at this point. But oh my God. And that was right before COVID happened. And you need like,
Oh yeah, I had the same thing.
yeah,
I have the laser all around my face, and then I got it done in October, November, and then I got hit by a car in December, and that pretty much stopped all of the visits. So yeah, that stinging, I can't imagine doing it on my legs or anywhere else. Like it stung so bad on my face.
When we got to the bikini area, I literally had to give myself a pep talk, because I'm like, okay, you came all this way. She has really great reviews. She's fantastic. She totally is. And I'm sitting there in the chair, and she's like, "Do you need a moment to yourself?" I'm like, yeah. I'm literally sitting there. I'm like, "Carolina, you got this. Everything is fine. Just suck it up and you'll be okay."
You're like, just burn it off now.
Oh my God. And then afterwards, she's like, "Now you'll know for next time." I'm like, "Thanks."
I think you were burning because you had too long hair. Like that had to be it, because it wasn't so bad on the face.
No, yeah, because I mean, like I said, I'm European descent and I'm hairy,
Yeah.
so, and it just accentuates more after you give birth. So,
Exactly.
like my husband is like, "Well, this is fascinating," and I'm like, "You should not be looking at this right now."
Hence why we wax and we laser.
No, but what I don't understand is, like, okay, so you go for a wax, right? You're nice and clean for a couple of days. Then the stubble starts. Then you have to wait another couple of weeks until you're hairy beast again. And then you get a wax. The cycle goes all like, around. So my husband goes to me, he's like, "So what's the purpose of this? You're only like clean, like only like for a couple of days. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, no, you have a good point. I really don't know. And then
maybe it's torture. Maybe people like to be tortured because that's what I feel like it is. Like, let's just rip everything out, and like it's just pure torture. My friend does it to herself, and I'm like, I do not know how she does it to herself. I just can't. It's torture. I can't. Nope.
I tried to do it myself, and then like so I put the wax on, and then I put the what is it, that cloth on top, and then I held the skin, and I'm like about to do it, and I started giving myself a pep talk, and I'm like, you're okay, and then I tried to do it a little bit. I'm like, forget this. So I went and I got like baby oil to wipe it off. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not doing this.
Oh my gosh.
And
I remember reading this mom's post about doing her wax, and she went and did it in the bathtub, and she got the wax stuck on the bottom of the tub and on her, and she couldn't lift up. She literally had to call her husband in for like an emergency of like trying to get her off the Oh, it's totally something I would do because you think the bathtub is safe, right? You're like, okay, let's just go wax or nude. Everyone's right there. Nope, she got stuck to the tub. So, it's not worth it at this point. I'll just go hair it or laser it. I don't know. What are the other?
I don't know why, but like right before, I'm pretty sure this is very common. When you go like to see your gyno, like your OBGYN, when you were
I haven't been there in a while, but yeah.
I haven't been there in a while either. But the only thing that I kept thinking of is I have to be clean down there, and like when I give birth, and even before that. And then I would think to I would talk to my husband, and I'm like, my OBG sees so many
ugly
parts
no
all day long, and I'm thinking, I'm like, well, when, because I had a male one, he's fantastic.
Yeah, I had a good guy too.
He's so awesome. But like in the middle of like me giving birth with my first son, him and my husband were talking about football, and I'm like, hello, I'm like, it's coming out now, like focus on me.
Football is the conversation during birth, because that was going off with my dad and my father-in-law. I'm like, I'm the one pushing this thing out. Why are we talking about football right now?
And then I remember
the body, the baby.
I don't know about Miles, but my husband wanted to look, and my legs were on the stirrups, and I kicked him right away really quick.
Miles stayed far behind. He's like, I don't want to see that.
I told him, I don't want you to see anything, but they needed to hold my legs while I was pushing. So my husband wanted, I guess, to see his son being born, and a reflex reaction I had, I literally kicked him for him not to look. And then he's like, okay, I got the point. So, but like, all I kept thinking about is I need to be clean, and I don't like, it's weird, but you can't even like see what you're doing down there, like when you're
your belly's too big. Like, how do you got to go and either get somebody else to do it, which to me would put me into labor. So I left that thing alone for a long time. There was no going anywhere near it when I was I was like, whatever happens down there happens. We're all good. Just push the kid out. I mean, we could go so into that, but nope.
Oh, and then what happens when you give birth? Nobody told me this stuff. Like, you have bowel movements when you're giving birth?
Well, you can. Not everyone does.
No, but I didn't know that.
You have a bowel movement where you were pushing?
I don't know. I think I did, but they didn't tell me.
Oh, I didn't
know. Well, listen, they give me a girl and they tell me push, and I don't know what I'm pushing. And then one of the nurses goes to me, she's like, it feels like you're doing number 2. I'm like, oh, so then I am pushing. And then I figured it out. And then, but like my doctor, he would tell me just push. So I would go.
You wonder why they cover themselves from like head to toe pretty much. No, that's why they say not to eat, because they're afraid that when you are pushing that you're going to have a poop when you're pushing, and that would actually be gross. So, but it happens to a lot of women. It happens.
But you're constipated while you're pregnant anyway.
Oh, I didn't have that issue.
You didn't? Oh, it was pretty.
Not everyone does. Yeah, it just depends on what baby's sitting to and your natural bowel rhythms.
I would cry, and I would just sit and eat prunes all day and like nothing.
Nothing happened. Oh my God. I remember, and this is actually, I gave birth today. My son is 20 today, and he's, so big. We don't,
Birthday.
I know, it's so amazing. I was thinking this morning in the car, like right now I was giving birth to my son 20 years ago, and it was amazing, and it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and the scariest thing I'd ever done. But then he just came out, and they were like, okay, this is the funny thing about birth. It's like, so this is the funny thing about birth is the trauma before, when when Ethan was coming out, he had his neck wrapped in the cord.
Okay.
So he'd come out and then go back in, come out and go back in. So they'd unwind him. So that was the drama. And then once he's born, they looked at me and they're like, okay, you got to push again. So you got to push again. Remember, women, you got to push out the placenta. So that's a whole birthing thing. It's birthing it. So
why don't they tell you this either? Because once the baby.
Well, now we are. We're warning. We got to forewarn people on this video. We're warning you about the placenta.
I'm like, okay, the baby came out. What else do you want me to push? There's nothing else in there. And
Right.
He's like, no, there's something else. I'm like, what the?
They start pushing on your belly. Like they started pushing on my belly. Like, okay, we need to get this out. So it's the baby's home. We got to get the placenta out. So you're pushing, you get the placenta out, and then it's like relief. So it can be another 15 minutes after birth before you feel relief. And then like 5 minutes later, the nurse looks at me. She goes, all right, I need you to walk to the bathroom and go pee.
Yes.
And I'm like, what? I got to go up and I have to walk right now? Like, what are you talking about? I just gave birth. And they're like, well, we need this room for another birth. So you need to get up and go pee, and we need to move you to another room. And I'm like, okay, great. So, go to the bathroom, grab my kid in a wheelchair and wheel me to another room. So, the process is like, it's natural. It's birth. It's what happens, and our bodies handle it. But yeah, it's all gushy and lovable, and oh, you're going to give birth. And then you got to rush out of the room because they need that room. So yeah, Ethan was adorable though. He came out 7 pounds, 11 ounces. He was a cutie. He nursed okay, but we had issues afterwards with nursing, which we'll get into a whole other segment on nursing. But yeah,
that was because my first with Ari, I think it was Ari or Aaron, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure. No, it was with Aaron, because with Ari I gave birth because my doctor is affiliated in 2 hospitals in 2 different towns.
Yeah.
So he lives in one area and he can deliver in both areas. So with Ari, he was born 3 weeks early. I gave birth to him the day before 4th of July. It was during we had family come over. It was our housewarming, and I was in like the nesting syndrome.
Yep.
Oh my God. I took a toothbrush and I started cleaning the stove because my family was coming over. And
nesting.
Like, you do realize they could care less what the stove looks like.
Right.
But it's dirty. I need to clean it. So I'm standing there and I have one of the things on my stove. It's a cast iron. Like you could pick it up.
Yeah.
I picked it up. And mind you, I have not picked up anything heavier than 5 pounds during my entire pregnancy. I decided, let me pick it up. And I'm like, oh, okay, I feel something now. And then I went into early labor.
Oh, no.
So our whole family shows up. They're all eating there. And I'm sitting in my bedroom with all the women in my bedroom. And we're counting my contractions. And the doctor tells us, you could go to the hospital now if you want to. It was like 30 minutes away. My husband was flying was an understatement. Like how quickly we arrived there. But then with my second birth, it was a different hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And there's only one way to get there, and you have to take the highway. If there's traffic, I'm screwed. So, but the hospital is gorgeous. I mean, they bring the babies out. Every room is private, and they bring the baby out in like this red mahogany wood bassinet. It's so fancy there. And the nurses really take good care of you. So I wanted to go to this hospital, but we didn't know how to get there. So I had 3 false alarms.
Oh no!
First false alarm, my mom took me, we got lost, we went over the bridge, and we ended up turning around, and then we had a police officer escort us back with the sirens going off because my mom was freaking out in the car saying, my daughter's in labor, she's in labor, I don't know how to get to the hospital.
Best drive ever.
So we arrived there with one police car, sirens going haywire. We arrived right at the hospital. I get put into the wheelchair, and I'm just like, I think the contractions went away. So they monitor me. They bring me in. They're like, everything's fine. And they're like, are you drinking enough water? I'm like, I'm drinking like 5 bottles of like those massive liters of water a day. They're like, it's not enough for you. And that's probably why you had early contractions. But Aaron was right on time, literally like the day of. The second time it happened, I had 3 false alarms. And listen, every time you have a false alarm, you go to the hospital, they charge you as an emergency fee. I had $300 that I had to pay. I'm like, what is this? And then the third time, I refused to leave that hospital. I'm not getting charged another $100. This kid is coming out. And I walked, because it's like the hospital is so beautiful where it is. And there's so much like greenery. I don't remember walking so much as I did. I know every inkling of that hospital. Yeah. I would just walk up and down, because that's what the doctor said. Just
walking up.
And I was so tired. I could barely walk. I looked like a walrus.
You're like holding onto the wall, like, okay, I gotta take one more step. I know. I had one. Well, Ethan, I had a false start, but then we went straight into labor.
Okay.
Like a day later. So we were 36 hours labor with Ethan though. It was really long. Wow. And then with Sophia, she went into labor at 32 weeks with her. I went into labor at 32 weeks with her. And the doctor was like, well, you can't have her this yet. We want to keep her in as long as possible. So they put me on a pill that stops labor. It was like a half a pill. I had to take it for 3 weeks to get to 36 weeks. And then on my visit on Thursday, he took me off the pill. Friday morning, we're moving into a new house. So Friday morning, we're at Home Depot. And I'm like walking up those stupid aisles at Home Depot, right? And you know how like exhausting it is not being pregnant at Home Depot? Well, it's exhausting when you're pregnant. Halfway down the aisle of some lumber, whatever, I look at Miles and I said, hold on a second. And I was just like, I had to like really stop because the contraction was like, my stomach was like pulsing. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that was a real contraction. So let's keep moving. So we kept moving. I go and I ended up going to the doctor that day because I needed a checkup. Oh, no, that's not true. We went all weekend long. We moved us. So I had contractions all weekend long with Sophia. But they were so intermittent that I couldn't say that I needed to go to the hospital because it was like 15 minutes and then 5 minutes and then 15 minutes. So it was really in labor, but not traction labor. Anyways, Monday morning, Miles goes to work. So Friday was a hard push. Like I could feel contractions starting. So Monday, I'm sitting on the couch with all the boxes around and my 16-month-old son, Ethan, just crawling around all the boxes, like there was just nothing I could do. I was so entirely exhausted. Yeah. And the contractions are now coming every 10 minutes. Like they're becoming more steady. So I called my doctor at 9:00 in the morning. And I said, I think I need an appointment. I need you to look at me. I think there's something going on. I think I might be in labor, but I'm not sure. He goes, oh, let's not waste your money going to the hospital. Come to the office. I'll look at you. So Ethan's laying on my chest and I'm with a friend and she's waiting in the other room. And he looks at me and he goes, oh, her hair is dark. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I can see her scalp. And I was like, he goes, you're about 5 centimeters dilated. And I think it's time for you to go to the hospital. I'm like, Ethan's like going to sleep on my chest as I'm like laying there with my legs open. And he's like, yeah, I think you're about to give birth. I'm like, are you kidding me? So then I call Miles and I'm like, okay, he told me to go to the hospital. And he's like, well, I get off at 5. I'm like, what does that even mean? I get off at 5. Okay, I'll call your parents. So we call his parents and we wait at the home for him. He of course tells his boss he's coming home. So he's like he comes home a little earlier than 5. I think it was like 3 he got home. And so the appointment was at 1. So from 1 to 3 I stayed home, still in full contractions. And then my mother and father-in-law, everyone takes about an hour to get to my house. So that's how long it took to get there. And then he rushed me by 150 miles an hour to the hospital. And guess what they did? They gave me Pitocin. And Pitocin completely stopped my labor. I was in like full on going in and dilating, and then Sophie's heart rate dropped. I was having problems breathing. It was like just this huge thing. So we ended up just flushing our system. And then I gave birth to her at midnight. So from like 9 in the morning when it started, and finally at 9 o'clock or midnight, she was born. She was actually born at 12:01 a.m. So I got to choose when she was born. They said you can choose her birth date to be 120, was it 121 00 or 02, or it could be 122:02. And I said, let's do 122:02 because it was real. It was legit when she was born midnight. So plus it sounded cooler.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
it's birthing, I think birthing, having a baby, if it's possible, one of the most greatest things you can ever do is have a baby. But if you can't, watching the process is just as awesome. I've also gone to the hospital as a foster mom and picked up a baby. That feels just like the same. So it's like you don't have to birth a baby to have, that feeling. But yeah, I don't think we ever forget our birthing stories. Like that is just one of those things that sticks in your head. Like it's like getting stuck to the bottom of the bathtub while you're trying to wax, something you'll never forget. Just as painful or worse. The way she described the pain was like one leg up, one leg over. It was way worse than giving birth.
Oh my God.
So, anyways, so is that our whole segment today? Waxing and birthing. There you go.
I don't even know how we even got into this, but I just love it. I don't think I've ever really told anybody about that story. Too much info. Now everybody knows, especially the waxing or the laser.
Waxing or lasering. I think I was surprised by how painful the laser was. I wasn't expecting that burning sensation and that like poof. You're like poof, 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 poof. And you're like, what? Like, why does this hurt so much?
No, but what I realized is it actually depends on the machine that they're using and if they put on any topical cream on you. So I've done like 3 or 4 different laser places. And this one that I went to right before COVID it actually didn't really, it would have hurted more if I went somewhere else again, because I had like hair.
Yeah.
Right. And so.
Well, hopefully everyone has good, fun experiences on their own with, I think one of the best shows they ever had was when there was this like live TV show where they had the men get waxed. And that was like the best thing ever.
Just thinking about it. There was one that I saw yesterday where it was a guy where he wanted to get, his wife wanted for him to get his underarms waxed. So he has one arm up and the lady puts on all the wax on him. And he's like, oh no, this hurts already. And I'm like, what? And then she's getting ready to do the other arm because his wife is like, let her just do it together. It's fine. And then she says, I was laughing because she goes and she says, well, you can't say anything now because she put the stick in the wax. And I'm thinking it's kind of like when a cop starts to write a ticket for you. Once they put like the pen to the paper and they start writing, they're like, I'm already writing. Like there's nothing I can do. And then like when the wife said she put the stick already in the wax, there's nothing you can do.
Oh no.
Like you have to deal with it, right? So I'm just sitting there, and then I don't know why, but it is so funny to watch. It is so funny to the point, like my stomach, I felt like I did 5,000 sit-ups. That's how hard I was laughing, because they do the wax, right? And then they put the cloth on, and then like you see like her face and like the anticipation, like go, like going like this, like, and she hasn't done anything yet. And then they pull the skin, and then they go, and then you just hear the husband screaming. It is the funniest thing in the world.
It's a great torture device.
I don't know. It's like, and then what about, we should have like another conversation about IUDs and all stuff. And I'm like, babe, my body went through a lot. Like, you do something. You know?
Oh yeah. Well, Miles had. Yeah, my husband had a vasectomy.
Like,
so he took care of that for us. I didn't have to do anything. But you know, that's the whole thing about having kids. Like, how many kids are you gonna have? Because like, who's gonna help be responsible? You know, we're just gonna, you know, it's
have a baby.
No, it was like he was done. I mean, 25. The conversation we had was like, yeah, this is expensive. Like, and he goes, I don't like you pregnant, because I guess I was pretty crabby. So I don't know. I liked being pregnant, but he thought I was pretty crabby. So I was like, okay, well, you know.
So the second one was harder. It was, but my body became like more deformed after each one. And I only had 2. I'm like, what the hell's going to happen if I have a third? I'm like, things are here, things are there. I'm like, everything's saggy now. And all that, like, extra hair where it's not supposed to be. Like, what is going on? So I'm just like, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do still have my moments, and I'm like, I can still, you know, God willing, we can still have, if we, you know, choose as a family. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy.
Well, mine, since he's oldest today, is 20. I'm like, I think I'm good. I'm done. You know, it's it's been 20 years. It's been actually almost 19 years. So
I can't believe that. Yeah, ours are 10 and 8, and our friends are just, you know, like starting to have kids. So my husband actually over the weekend, he goes and he told me, he's like, it's pretty cool. Like, you know, our kids are going to be, you know, older soon, and all our friends are just their kids are just going to be getting out of diapers, and we are going to be, you know, like those young hip parents. And so
yeah, that's how we feel. I mean, you know, I'm 43 and he's 20, so it's like, definitely feel like we're still have a ton of youth left. You know, like, we're not older. I don't feel old. So
my parents are in their late 50s, and my mom's like, I still feel like I'm 16 years old. So I'm like,
yeah, I don't think we were meant to age. Honestly, I feel like we're young as we feel. You know, as we have to stay that youthful, because if we feel ourselves as old, then we're going to act old, and we're going to be feeling all those aches and pains. And I already have aches and pains, but I'm like, oh, well, there's an ibuprofen or an Aleve. There you go.
My son always cracks jokes. He's like, because for Halloween, he wanted to be like an old grandpa. So he borrowed like a cane from my grandmother. But she's like, well, anyway, I won't go into that, but he was walking around with it, and he's like, oh, my back hurts. I'm like, old man, stop. So, and I'm like, you're 10 years old. Just stop this nonsense. But
yeah, 10 more years, he's going to be 20. 10 more years. Look how fast 10 years went by. I have to tell you, like, one of the biggest things that the parents who are feeling all this stress of being in the middle of baby land right now, they're struggling with sleep, and they're exhausted. And of course, I think the whole planet's exhausted right now. But, you know, we have that extra exhaustion with babies.
Yeah. And
I tell all my clients this is one time in your life that you're always going to have with them. In a blink of an eye, they're going to be 2. In a blink of an eye, they're going to be 6 starting school. And then they're going to be 10, 12, 13. It's like, it goes by so fast that we have these struggles. But if you can get through it, just know that in just a few years, they're going to be telling you, hey, I don't want to do that. And you're going to be like, who's the boss of you? Who gave birth to you?
I don't care about that, please. What are you going to do, put them back in? But I completely agree with you. You know, my grandmother would always tell me, that I can't believe like you have kids now. And it goes by so quickly. But you're right, when you're in the midst of not just sleep deprivation, but when you have all this other stuff going on, I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be changing diapers for the rest of my life. Like they just wouldn't stop. And, then potty training happened, and then all of this, and I always get parents asking me, when does it like get better? Like what age is really better? And I think they're all great ages. It's just at every age, there's a different stage.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's life, right? If everything was like, kumbaya, life would be boring.
Yeah, exactly.
We all need that kind of, push and pull. But I think that what we can probably offer right now is a really good piece of advice is just try your hardest to live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And anxiety, especially for moms, does play a big role. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday, where I had a lot of anxiety when my kids were babies, but it was anxiety on the part of me feeling so pressured, doing everything right, meeting all of their developmental milestones, meeting all of their nutritional needs, making sure that all their clothes are washed with organic soaps and no fragrances, and they have to be dried, and all this stuff, the cloth that you're picking out, the diapers that you're picking out, the food that you're making, all homemade food, and the products that you're buying, reading all the ingredients and like researching, and then sleep, right?
Mm-hmm.
All this, and you're trying to become a master of everything. And then at points it might feel like that motherhood that you wanted might be taken away.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we forget during the middle of that drama, during the middle of our anxiety, and we get overwhelmed, that really it's going to go by very quickly. I find that too is like, if you had anxiety before you had a baby, you have to be prepared for anxiety after baby. It does happen. So make sure you talk to your pediatrician or your OBGYN for help, because you can't, I didn't know I had postpartum depression until Sophie was 15 months old. And then I told the doctor I wanted to die, because I went into the see my OB for a checkup, and I was like, I just want to die.
You had postpartum depression?
Yeah, I had severe postpartum depression, and I didn't know it. I just was living every day. Just getting through it, right? And there was angry spells with Miles, yelling at each other off and on. And we yelled a lot during those periods because, I was unhappy and I was exhausted, and he was working all the time. And, so it was this accumulation of not lack of sleep, because I think my kids actually slept through the night, but I can't remember now. But I don't remember being lack of sleep, but I remember just being super depressed and not being happy. And so I didn't realize postpartum depression lasted so long, but I had it for over 3 years, because I had it with Ethan, because his was a traumatic birth, and then got pregnant 7 months later with Sophie. And then so I had that postpartum depression for over 3 years. So yeah, it can happen. It's crazy.
I wasn't diagnosed with PPD, but I had something really intense also, which it was heading in that direction. But I got help early on, without me realizing it, because one of my close friends, and I remember it to this day, I call her up and she comes over, and my baby's perfect baby. And I'm sitting in my bedroom crying hysterically. I have perfect husband, the perfect, first home, perfect baby, perfect life for me, like what I consider for me. But I felt like something inside of me was broken.
Yeah.
And I just kept crying all the time, and I didn't understand why. And he was only a couple of weeks old, and she came over and she's like, this is what happens, and this is normal to an extent. So she we were like talking, and then she explained to me because nobody talks about this. Like
Right.
if I mentioned this to someone else, they would just say, just snap out of it. And I'm like, well,
How do you snap out of it? Like, how do you, yeah, it's not something you can just snap out of. That's
no. So after that, I was talking with like a couple of other people, and then I did receive some assistance on that. And a lot of it was really help with talking to making sure that I didn't feel like I was alone and that I wasn't going crazy. Because there were points, especially when I was sleep deprived, because I would, be feeding on demand at night. And then when he would wake up in the morning, I would go for like 3-hour walks with him outside on the boardwalk. I would barely eat because when I would be nervous, or I was always keeping busy doing laundry or doing cooking or cleaning. I would vacuum every day the apartment, like to the point that you could lick the floor, like you could eat off the floor. And I wanted to be like the perfect mom, the perfect wife. And I was on maternity leave from where I was working at that point in time. And that's just like, one thing went into the next. And I'm like, well, this isn't a life of living, because I wasn't enjoying anything. I was just going through the motions, right?
Yeah.
It's like a checklist, like checking off everything to make sure at the end of the day I get an A+. And the worst part is I remember waiting for my husband to come home from work and keeping myself up so I can be with him, because it's the only time we would be able to spend together.
Right.
I was like a zombie. And
Yep.
at a point he told me, it literally pains me looking at you right now. I want you like to go to sleep. And I started thinking, but I can't go to sleep, because if I go to sleep, I'm not spending time with him. And then I'm a horrible wife. And then we're going to get divorced because we're not spending time together. And like all this stuff was like going through my head. And meanwhile, I know that that's not true. And it was my own way of, trying to be perfect.
Yeah. And we live in an imperfect world.
Yeah. So that took me a while to kind of figure that out. But here we are now. 10
I
years.
know. Well, I just think of all of the knowledge that we have. We
10
can help
years later.
moms out there. We can help all the moms out there who are going through the same thought process,
Yeah.
or the same similar situations. I think that we just need to give ourselves grace. We need to give ourselves a pause and say, you know what? Life is hard. We are scared. We are depressed. This human, oh God, we have to give ourselves grace that everything is going to happen, and not have that checklist. Maybe one thing off that checklist each day, not 10 of them. But yeah, I think this is a good segment. This was a good one. I think that we're going to go ahead and close it off now. And we're hoping that you enjoyed us rambling on about humorous things that happen to the human body, but also what happens with waxing. But also that, depression happens, and get help if you need it. Both of us have been there. But yeah, reach out to who you know for help, and make sure you talk about it. Don't hide about your feelings.
And don't feel like you're embarrassed. I mean, as women, as mothers, we go through a lot of emotions, and just
don't put it off as like, don't put it off, because
don't say I'm gonna snap out of it.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it.
Exactly.
And there's always, the light at the end of the tunnel, as long as you get the tools and you work on yourself. And
yes. And that's the key. Take care of ourselves. That is the true key.
But let's sign off, because I can keep talking.
I know. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoy next time.
Bye.